Good morning, everyone, and welcome. My name is Michael Gibbs, and I'm the founder and CEO of Go Cloud Careers. And I'm here today to help you build your best cloud computing career by answering any type of cloud computing career questions you have. Maybe your goal is to become a cloud architect. Maybe you desire to be a solution architect. Maybe you want to be a cloud engineer or an enterprise architect. Whatever the case is, I've been working in technology now for more than 25 years, and I've been helping others get their first tech job or get promoted in tech for more than 2 decades. And I want to help you get cloud hired or cloud promoted. Now, I know the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, and I know a mentor had saved me decades by giving me the right advice, and I want to save you decades of mistakes and get you to the top as fast as possible. So please ask us your questions. I do these sessions because 20 years ago or 25 years ago, when I left medicine and moved into tech, I listened to everybody and they said, oh, you need certifications. And I spent $5,000 on an MCSE certification. Nobody cared. Became a CCNA, a CCNP, a CCDA, a CCDP. Sent out resumes and people said, yeah, you got certifications. Now what? But I know how to get you hired. And I've been getting people hired for decades now, and I want to get you hired. So I want to get you to whatever your dreams are as fast as possible, as cheaply as possible. So ask us your questions. Pop them in the chat box. Before we do, I'd like to tell you about some free things we're going to be doing to really help you build your best career. We're going to be releasing in approximately a month, sign up for it now, a free book on passing the Google Professional Cloud Architect exam. It will be a deep, comprehensive book that will cover everything you need for the exam, and it's going to be completely free. So pre-register now, and we'll email it to you when it's available. Now, also, we had such a massive response to our LinkedIn and resume workshop, we decided to do it free. So the people that bought it are going to get a very special gift from us in terms of interview preparation coaching and some training regarding that. And everybody else is going to now get to attend live for free. And it's going to be a great time. The average student at Go Cloud Careers gets bombarded by recruiters trying to hire them. They don't have to apply for jobs. The people come to them. So come attend our LinkedIn and resume workshop, and guess what? People will be coming to you too. Excuse me. Now, tomorrow, we're going to have our How to Get Your First Cloud Job webinar, and we're going to do it at a new time. We're going to do it at 1 p.m. It's a special webinar, and it'll be different than we normally do. So if you've seen it before, come again. Why not? And if not, please join us. We will tell you how to get your first cloud architect job. You'll know everything the hiring managers want, everything you need to learn, exactly the kind of things that should be on your resume or CV, how to skip HR so you can get hired when you have no experience. Next. The birthday discount is back. So I had my team reinstate the birthday discount. It's 30% off of every product that we have to help you get cloud hired as fast as possible at the lowest cost possible. So take advantage of my 30% off birthday discount in order to do these things. So come and ask your questions. And before you ask the questions, give me a hashtag cloud hired or a hashtag cloud architect, hashtag solution architect, or whatever it is that's your goal. And don't be shy. It looks like you guys are being shy. I only see a couple of questions in the chat box. Don't be afraid to ask. While we're at it, if you're here, hit the like button, subscribe, and hit the bell notification so you get to hear about all of our things as they come out. And we've got a lot of things coming out for you, a lot more YouTube videos, a lot more blogs, a lot of magazine articles. Today, for example, we posted a link. I was in HR.com. They wanted me to talk about soft skills benefiting your career. So anything we can do to help you in your career, we'd be happy to. Giovanni. Hi, Mike. You have a lot of technical experiences working with data center infrastructure, networking, and routing. Would the architect career be suitable? So Giovanni, I don't care what your experience is. It doesn't matter. Now, I'm going to tell you, if your background is data center and networking, specifically on the routing side, you are advantaged. But it doesn't matter. And here's why it doesn't matter. Jennifer Emu just got hired yesterday. She was a behavioral health tech, and that was her first job. Romanik Ivan Tamba was serving food, and then he got hired by AWS. Coyote was a college student when he got hired by AWS. Delroy was an EMT when I met him, and he's now working as a cloud security architect. Daniel was working at Nordstrom selling shoes, and he's now a cloud architect. Jermaine, my student, was working as a landscaper selling landscaping equipment, and now he's working as a cloud architect. So it is not your background, Giovanni. It's your training. It's your competency. It's your abilities. It's not what you did in your past life. Look, I practiced medicine in my past life. That's what I used to do. And I've been an architect pretty much the second I started in technology. So the key is, what would you like to do? And if you'd like to be an architect, Giovanni, it's great. It's not what your past life did that makes you determined. It's what you want to do. You know, if I want to be a doctor, I'm not going to go to nursing school and pharmacy school and physical therapy school and then say, hope my background's good enough. I'm not going to do that at all. I'm going to get the right training and be there. So, Giovanni, I think you need to understand the difference between an architect and an engineer. An engineer configures OSPF on the router OSPF1, network 10.0.1.0, 0.0.0.3 for a WAN interface, area 0. That's hands-on tech. That's not what architects do. Architects design. So if you have a big technical background, that's good, because you may know OSPF and you may know BGP and you may have good knowledge of what a load balancer is, and IDS IPS systems and VPN concentrators and firewalls and storage area networks. You probably know that, which is great. The question is, Giovanni, that's still engineering. How do I set up this fiber channel thing? How do I configure this thing? How do I click this, click that? What codes do I put in? That's tech. See, for the architect, Giovanni, it's how do I fix a business? The tech is just your tool. So I want to make this very clear. As the engineer, where you're techie in the data center, your job is the tech. As an architect, your job is not tech at all. Your job is, how do I improve the business? Engineer, tech. Architect, business. Engineer, tech. Architect, business. So the technical experience you have is helpful, but what you're going to have to do, Giovanni, is forget the tech. Whoa, that sounds scary. You're going to have to forget thinking about the tech, and then you view the tech as a new way. How does the tech make things work better? That's what you're looking for. How does the tech fix something? So, for example, you know networking, right? Now, what are the things that you've learned in networking that apply to cloud? We do micro-segmentation in networking. We segment via VLANs. We segment via private VLANs. We put stuff in a certain subnet and run ACLs between them. We run quality of service. We run rate limiting things. We do all these kind of cool things to improve it. How do we micro-segment on the cloud? Well, maybe we create 1,000 VPCs. Since we can't do private VLANs, we can't do 802.1x, we can't do any of the cool layer 2 filters or any of the cool, really hardcore security things in the cloud. We can't do it in the network. So, when you think about this, it's all about how do we apply. So can you take that private VLAN knowledge in your head and realize it's the same thing as a Kubernetes cluster and a container? It's the same kind of architectural situation. Can you look at a storage area network and understand, hey, the stuff on the cloud is the same stuff that it was 30 years ago? And if you can apply that and then design the pieces and parts together, Giovanni, then you've got a great background. And your tech background, realistically speaking, sounds very good. But what you have to understand is this is not an engineer job. So what you will need to go from engineer to architect is as follows. You will need to develop large amounts of business acumen, executive presence, communication skills, sales skills, emotional intelligence, CXO relevancy, executive writing, executive level presentation, ROI modeling capabilities, because you're going to be building business cases. You're going to be speaking in front of multi-thousand person audiences. You're going to be writing thought leadership documentation. So when you're an engineer, you need to unthink like an engineer, which is the tech itself. Start thinking the end-to-end big picture and then put it into business terms. And that's why, Giovanni, if you're dealing with these big companies, when you're dealing with an enterprise architect, like at Cisco, an enterprise architect's a director. Now, a director is a pretty big role at a company like Cisco. And an enterprise architect is a director. They are mostly business executive with some techie. cloud architect, I like to say it's 50% tech, 50% business. But Giovanni, my students that are all working, and they're all working, the people that do the work when they graduate, they tell me, Mike, I go to meetings, I buy lunches, dinners, and drinks. I go to more meetings, and more meetings. I write documents, just like you said. Mike, it's been a year and I haven't done anything technical yet, ever. And that's kind of the reality. So your technical experience is great, Giovanni. I absolutely love that. But it's the business thing that you need to know. It is, how do you improve the impact to your customers with technology? You learn how to do that and you will have an incredible cloud architect or solution architect career. So it's not what architect career is suitable for you. It's what do you want to do? Because I gave you examples of mental health techs, waiters and waitresses that are working as cloud architects, landscapers that are working as cloud architects, college students that are working as cloud architects. And here's the thing. They picked what they liked. Delroy Batt didn't know security 2 years ago. He didn't know security a year and a half ago, but he's now a cloud security architect, and he's a darn good one. Daniel Bosu didn't know cloud architecture a year ago. He was working at Nordstrom, but now he does. Ivan Tamba 2 years ago didn't know anything about the cloud, and now he's working at AWS. Same for Coyote. Same for Jennifer, the mental health tech. The point is, what would you like to do, Giovanni? What is it? It's not your background. You're going to need training no matter what you want to do. So train for the job you want and get the job you want. Love the job you want and love your life and get cloud hired. So your past does not define your future. You define your future. You determine what you love. Make your vacation your vocation, meaning make your hobby or holiday your vacation. And you're never going to work a day in your life. So what have you done in the past? Doesn't matter. What do you want to do today? What did you eat for dinner last night? Doesn't matter. What are you going to eat for breakfast today? It's a new day. And what do they call it? New day, new jour in French, or anything I could do. The point is go enjoy the new day. Make it everything you possibly want it to be. And Chris, we can bring in the next one. That's the point. What is different about what you do than what's in available places like Udemy, etc.? Well, that's the point. You can take a Udemy course and 2 years from now, you'll still be unemployed because there's nothing in there that matters. So let me tell you, here's the difference. A Udemy course is typically taught by someone that has no background knowledge. And look at the people that are making these Udemy certification courses. They have to hide behind PowerPoint slides because they're not really architects. They don't really know it. So when you take one of these courses, what you hear is blah, 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 blah. It's because if you don't know it well enough, you can't explain it simply, as Albert Einstein said. And we bought every one of those courses. Now, that's the point. So there's this. The main difference is we teach live and we actually teach the job. So in our classes, you're going to go to class and you're going to be mentored by architects with 25 years experience, like me. And you're going to learn how to be an architect. And we're going to teach you how to design it, present it, and sell it, which is the architect's job. You take a course on Udemy and you're going to learn the name of a service and how to configure that service. Now, that's the point. Architects don't configure services. So what you'll learn in Udemy will be such worthless skills that you're going to be done the Udemy and have to take our course anyway. And that's the point of our students. 90% of them first wasted their time on those 4 certification providers courses. They wasted a year of their life, got 4, 5, 6 certifications, and they are 100% unemployable. So you can take those courses if you want, but a year later, come back and take our course because you won't be employable. And I hate to say it, but it's reality. So in that year, you would have lost $160,000, which is the average salary. So you can save a couple bucks on Udemy, but don't expect to be employed in the end. Now, in our program, you can ask questions in class. In our program, you have 500 hours of training versus, the 6 to 8 or one of the silly 20 hours that's in a nonsense certified solution architect professional, which covers the name of a service and how to configure that, which, by the way, is not what we do as architects. So there's that. So we have a massive supportive community. So this weekend, 3 of my students built a cloud together. Some of my other students practiced interviewing each other. I've got students that are now published with an AWS book. Many of my students will be published with a Google book very soon. And some of my students will be published with something else. Now, that's just some of the differences, the live training. Now, then there's the hands-on piece. Now, if you take a Udemy course, you're going to get some worthless things like you're going to go do a Git project, which is not architecture, or you're going to set up a WordPress website and you're going to tell the hiring manager, look what I did, and they're going to say, run along, little child. And if you're in our course, you're going to be working with the real stuff. And you're going to be building your own clouds from scratch. So you're really going to learn it. Now, in Udemy, they're going to teach you, here's the name of a service, which you can't use because it's proprietary anyway in most cases, and here's how to configure that service. And 87% of customers are multi-cloud, so we're going to teach you how to do it. Now, the next piece is we create architects, right? Real working architects. That's why my students get paid so much. Our average graduate is between $120,000 and $275,000 a year. That's our average graduate at a cost that's less than $1,000. And there's no other return on investment that I know where you pay less than $1,000. And I had somebody get a $275,000 job this year off of paying $1,000. My average student earns enough that they can buy a brand new house and 2 brand new Mercedes because we teach them. Now, in Udemy, they teach the tech skills, which are not the job. They don't teach the business acumen training. And if you want to do Udemy, that's the point. Make sure you get an MBA. That will cost you a good $50,000 if you're not with us. But you need that MBA or you need the business acumen we teach. Now, you're not going to be an architect by learning the tech skills. You need to understand the presentation skills. So if you don't take our course, make sure you take a course like Presenting to Win from Jerry Weissman or a Speakeasy course, and that will be a few $1,000s because you will need those courses for this. Now, you will also need to learn executive writing, which is not covered in any Udemy course. And the people that teach these skills are very expensive. So make sure you get an executive writing skill because we teach it, and that wouldn't be there. So when you're done that, you're going to need to learn how to sell. You're not going to get that from Udemy either, and you're not going to get to practice selling executive C-level executives like my students do, which is part of the job. So there's that. And, when you're done that, we're going to tune your resume so that you don't have to apply for jobs. People like Del Ryback got hired with 0 certifications and 0 experience. Now, if you do the Udemy approach, you could probably get a job within 2 years as a cloud admin and do that for a couple of years and then become a cloud engineer for a few years and hope to learn and then do an MBA and then become years later the cloud architect. Or you could just take my course and get your 150 or 1,000 or so job within 8 to 10 months of doing my work, as opposed to worrying about Udemy and costing you 5-10 years of your life and you're still not going to be good hired. So, there's that. And then it's the outcome. The outcome of one of these things is a worthless certificate that you can basically use, hang up on your wall. I would personally use it. I would put some Windex on it and wipe my windows of my car because that's about how valuable those certificates are. Versus graduation for us is hired because we let our students stay in there. So that's the point. It's up to you. And we allow other people to do this. I'm going to tell you 90% of our students already failed path. They already took the Udemy courses or the guy in Australia that talks about his 4 cats that are his daughters. I mean, they typically come from one of those 3 courses that you can buy on Udemy or that other character. And then after a year of going on interviews and getting told that you need more experience, getting told sorry, getting told this, then they come to us and we get them hired. So our outcome, that's the point, is hired. Places like Udemy, their goal is the name of a service and how to configure that service. And if you want that, you can do it. But that's the point. A year from now, when you're not working in anything good, we'll happily train you then. The sad reality is, though, you would have lost about $160,000, the average cloud architect salary, while you're there. So those are the main differences. I knew what existed on Udemy, and that's why I came out of retirement to start this course. I don't need to work. Why do you think we charge so little? We charge almost our cost because I know what's on Udemy. And I don't think anybody should have to take their time, effort, and money into something like that because it may be cheap on the surface. But what is the opportunity cost of your time? The average cloud architect earns $600 a day. A good one earns $1,200 a day. And what separates a $600 architect a day from a $1,200 or a $1,500 a day architect? Business acumen, soft skills, executive presence, leadership, emotional intelligence. Now, I had to spend, along with the company, about $250,000 to learn these skills. And I teach them for less than $1,000. So choice is yours. But our students get cloud hired, and our students get paid far more than anybody else's. So that's another difference, too. Whereas you can go to the next one. It's a great question. That's the point. Douglas G., you had an interaction with a potential employer at a job fair. Good. I was asked what salary I was expected as a cleric. Like you said, around 140. They were disgusted. Should I have not have said that? Chris, the person was a VP for management service company. Maybe I misread him. So Douglas G, you never ask for the money ahead of time, regardless of how they ask you. You always dodge the question, and here's the reason why. You can go on an interview and they're set to pay 110, and I've done this and walked out with a $200,000+ salary because they love you. Now the reality is 140 might have been a little low, and they may have looked at you and said, "Why is he asking for so little?" So that's a very good possibility as well. There was something else that must have been going on. And the key is it a real cloud architect or is it an engineer with an architect title? So when you see these jobs where they call them architect and they list DevOps skills and coding skills, they're not architect jobs, they're engineering skills, and they pay much less. Much less. If the real architect skills, they pay much more. So Douglas, I think something else was going on in the process. I doubt it had anything to do with money. The 140 is lower than most of our people are actually getting, so that is not the case. Now, Douglas, you are pretty sharp, very smart, and another New Jerseyan like me, and I know what your capabilities are. So I don't think you mentioned money until the end. I've always been advised on that, and I've always done that. So because you never know. Once you wow the employer, you can get more. If you unwow the employer, they pay you less. Now, when you kind of think of it, the better your communication, leadership, sales skills, executive presence is the stuff that gets you to earn more. The better your technical skills, make sure that you qualify. But at the end, if you're too techy, you actually get paid less, which is the dichotomy in architecture, which is why it's so different than engineering. The best way, one of my students that got hired recently, and I know my students get hired every day, is they said to him, "Look, I want a sales guy in a lab coat. I don't want a techie." I just spoke to another chief technology officer, chief information officer, another business. They're like, "Mike, I like your people because you don't give me techies, you give me architects." Douglas, you may have been around last year. I don't remember, last June 8th, when Amazon had a manager come to our class and talk about why he likes our people, because he doesn't want techies. He wants executive architects. So there's that. So I think it had something to do more with some other factor. I think the salary was just something that fit into the equation that they didn't like, but I don't think that was it at all. I'm sure there was something else. I'd be curious to find out what that other thing is, because you're pretty sharp. But there was something. But generally speaking, don't talk money until the offer's been made. You never want to do it because it's very off-putting. So if I had to guess, that could have been a test as well. Never discuss money unless you have no choice until they've made the decision to hire you. And that, how good you did on the interview, will determine what your negotiation capabilities are. So try not to discuss money ahead of time if you don't have to. Yeah. Mike, for cloud security, have you ever heard of the CCSK? Yes. What are your thoughts on it? I think it's a complete and total waste of your time. Certifications are not going to get you any job ever, except for the Cisco Certified Internet Expert. Except for that. So look, there's two certifications that I actually find valuable in security. The first one, which is the one everybody should get, is the CISSP, because it covers security, policy, and all these other things. That's the one you do if you want to be an architect, because it's not a hands-on technical thing, and it's an end-to-end design thing. So it's the CISSP. Now, also, there's a CCSP, Certified Cloud Security Professional or something like that. That one's okay. There's also a CISM for people in management, and that's also okay. They're the only three that I would ever touch. So again, these good jobs are not certification jobs. And when you have to think about it, entry-level jobs may like certifications because the certification is sort of like, hey, this person knows the name of a service and how to configure it. But big jobs like architecture jobs are about how do you design it, present it, and sell it. And there are absolutely zero certifications that talk about this. Now, when you got to look at it this way, when you are an architect, if you have too many certifications on your resume, you're unhireable. What? If you have too many certifications on your resume, you are not hireable. And if you are hireable, you're paid a lot less. And here's why. We only have a finite amount of time in our life. And if you are an architect, your focus is digital transformation. What the heck is digital transformation? It means making the company's business performance better, improving the customer's business performance. I'll say it again, improving the customer's business performance. And what are your tools as the architect? It's tech or process redesign or something like that. So getting 1 billion certifications on tech does not teach you digital transformation. So when would employers know if you're hyper-focused on certifications, you're not hyper-focused on learning digital transformation, which means you're not a good architect. So here's what it means to be great at something. One, to learn it, know it, and focus all your time, effort, and money toward it like a laser beam. That's what it takes. So I like Simone Biles. She's just a fantastic gymnast to watch. I'm also infatuated with watching Usain Bolt run and just the speed of it. I mean, it's incredible. And if Usain Bolt spent 55% of his time sprint training and another 50% of his time swimming, guess what? He would not be the fastest man in the world. Simone Biles was probably the world's greatest gymnast, right? Kind of thought Shawn Johnson was pretty impressive too. Lots of Alicia Sacramone, I thought was pretty impressive. Gymnastics fascinates me. Now, if those gymnasts spent 50% of their time studying gymnastics and 50% studying something else, guess what? They wouldn't be Olympians, they'd be hobbyists. So when it comes to being an architect, your strength is your digital transformation ability. Digital transformation, digital transformation, digital transformation. So when you spend too much time in something that's not digital transformation, here's the problem. Your competition, the people that are going to compete against you for jobs and raises and promotions, they're focused on digital transformation, which is the job. If you're hyper-focused on certifications, you're not focused on your job, you're focused on learning irrelevant stuff, which makes you less valuable, less employable, and lowers your salary. So the real key is get the requisite certifications, which is like 2. Maybe a certified solution architect professional and a CISSP, or maybe a AWS certified solution architect professional or an Azure solutions architect expert and a Cisco certified network professional. But 2 certifications is more than you need. Focus on business acumen, executive presence, leadership skills, emotional intelligence, CXO relevancy, executive writing, executive presentation, writing thought leadership documents. Focus on your job. Focus on being the best at your job. Let everybody else focus on the stuff which is less related to your job. Architects don't get hired because of certifications. Architects get hired because of their ability to do digital transformation. So please focus your time and effort on becoming an architect. And only spend a little bit of your time on certifications. Well, I don't even renew my certifications. In fact, I remember at Cisco, those of us that got to really high levels, we were like, if we keep renewing these certifications, our salary's going to go down. So we may renew them, but we hide them from our resume. So my thoughts on this are focus on digital transformation, focus on solving customer problems, focus on making your customers more money, focus on reducing your customers' costs, improving their operational efficiency. That's your architect career. So I'm thrilled you asked the question because I don't want to see you spend years going down the wrong path, killing yourself to lower your salary and make it harder to get a job. I'm thrilled you're here. Thanks for your question. Oh, well, thank you so much, Mike. You have probably saved me so much time. That was my goal. Focus on the business and watch your career rise. So while we're at it, if anybody here wants to basically get cloud hired, take advantage of my 30% off discount code. And if you haven't given a like yet, please give a like, subscribe, hit the bell, that sort of thing. Well, hello, Mike. Why is most trainers on AWS starts everyone from solution architect and DevOps? Is there a way you can start from DevOps without passing through solution architecture? Let's make this very clear. DevOps is automating software release, and architecture is design. Why are certification providers saying, here, start over here, and then do this? They want to sell certification courses. Now, Barry, here's how you can tell a good educational provider versus a bad one. Anyone that's got a course bundle that wants you to do the cloud practitioner, AWS certified solution architect associate, certified solution architect professional, DevOps associate, cloud developer, and SysOps certification is killing your career. And that's because they've never really worked in the job. They taught at an academy, and all of a sudden they decided to buy a webcam, hide behind the webcam and a microphone, and make these PowerPoint slides with audio. And their goal is to sell courses. Now, if you want to be a DevOps professional, go be a DevOps professional. Which means first become a good software developer, because DevOps people are developers. They're typically full stack developers first. Then get good at the DevOps tools. And there's some Jenkins, Spinnaker, Git. Give me a whole bunch of them. Terraform, all that stuff. And then learn the cloud DevOps tools. You got to remember, an architect designs, presents, and sells. And a DevOps engineer is really focused on development and automating development. Now, Burra, would it be good to actually have some basic AWS knowledge of how the things are deployed and work together? The answer is sure it would. Because that way, when you do infrastructure as code, you're going to be able to know what it is you're configuring. So there is a way there. But yes, you can be a DevOps person without doing any solution architect training. Of course you can. I know DevOps people that have 0 certifications. They're DevOps professionals, and they're in demand. Lots of DevOps people. I know DevOps people working at networking companies like Cisco, Versa Networks, for example. I know enterprise. Actually, who else do I know? I know DevOps engineers that have 0 certifications that are working on the cloud and off the cloud. So yes, you can become a DevOps engineer, but here's the key: be a great DevOps engineer. Be a really, really great one. Also, Baron, know that you can't become a DevOps professional by just passing an AWS DevOps Pro exam. So, Barry, in order to become a DevOps professional, you must know DevOps. So, software development first, then DevOps tools, then cloud DevOps tools. Now, Barry, there's a friend of mine. His name is Sandeep Das. He's got a good DevOps channel on YouTube, and he's always teaching people DevOps. And I strongly would recommend you go see Sandeep Das' YouTube channel. He's come on my channel. I come on his channel. I think he's a pretty good guy, and he's very knowledgeable in the DevOps space. But no, you don't have to become a solution architect to become a DevOps engineer. Become a DevOps engineer. We got people trying to do the opposite. They think if they learn DevOps, they're going to become a solution architect. And that's not going to work either. You want to be a DevOps engineer, bro? Become a DevOps engineer. But make sure you've got good software development skills for this, really good Python skills, really good automation skills, really good Kubernetes skills, and really good knowledge of the DevOps tool. And you can have an incredibly great career in DevOps. Terraform too. Great question, bro. And Chris, or shall we go to the next one? And please ask some questions. Anakin, hello, Mike. You recently signed up for your classes and love it so far. I'm so happy to hear that. Really enjoying the classes, but how do we learn to pass the certification exam? So, Anakin, there'll be a section on there for the AWS certifications. There'll be a section there for the Azure certifications. There's the book there for the AWS certifications. But like anything else, I recommend you get a practice test. And here's the reason why. We're going to teach the reality of life, because that's what we do. The certification is going to be based on some irrelevant concept. For example, they're going to talk about DynamoDB, which Anakin is a great database, but in most cases, I can't use it because I use multiple clouds. SQS, great, right? No. I'm going to have 2 clouds. I want the same thing. I'm going to be using Apache Kafka. WAF. That's not going to, nobody's going to use that to secure their enterprise. They're going to be using a next generation firewall if it matters. So we recommend that you get a practice test. A practice test. Kind of keep that in the back of your mind. Get a practice test. And work those practice questions until you get a 95%. And once you can get a 95% consistent on a practice test, then go take the exam. Realize the exam is just, honestly, it's a checklist. There's nothing in it that's valid. I mean, 0. If you want to be an architect. Now, if you want to be an engineer, there's probably 20% that's valid in the certified solution architect professional. But for the certified solution architect professional, for a cloud architect, maybe it's 5%. So, here's the thing. Become great at your job. Knock out the certification exams with the practice test. Truthfully, with a good practice test, you can knock them out in 3 or 4 days. There's nothing to these certification exams. It's just learning how they ask the questions. So focus on the job. Delray Batch has got his cloud security architect, and he has 0 cloud certifications, 0. And when I asked him, I said, Delray, can you afford a brand new 4-bedroom home and 2 Mercedes? He said, of course I can, and I can save money each month with 0 cloud certs. Jeffrey West was hired with nothing more than a cloud practitioner. He was my student. His last job was a geologist. So Andrew Brown from Exam Pro has a very good free AWS course as well. So I like that. So stay with Andrew Brown, take our free certification training, read our free books, and get a practice test. Review and Prep has some good ones. You'll be good to go. Simple stuff. And very happy you're having a good time so far. We've got a nice, really fun live class tomorrow, and look forward to seeing you in class. Great. What's the difference between a cloud engineer and an architect? Grace, it is a great question, and they're complete opposites. I'm also going to have my team post a link to a video. A cloud architect does the following, Grace. They design the solution, present the solution, and sell the solution. So say it with me. Design, present, and sell. Which means the cloud architect does not touch the technology. It is not a hands-on technology professional. It is a business executive who also knows tech. So the cloud architect is focused on how do I put the pieces and parts together in much the same way that a chef and a sommelier would plan the food, the wine pairings, what wine goes with what food, what greens goes with what kind of food, how do they paint the plate for an end-to-end presentation. That's what the architect does. So architect skills are business acumen, leadership skills, sales skills, executive presence, ROI modeling, executive communication skills, negotiation, sales. Now, the cloud engineer, Grace, is a deep hands-on technology professional. The cloud engineer builds everything that the architect designs. So before I get into the cloud engineer, let's look at the interplay. If you wanted to build a hotel, you would hire an architect. And I would say, I want it 1,000 meters tall, and I want a waterfall, and I want a helipad that's going to look like this. I want a golf course in here, a couple of tennis courts, 3 jacuzzis, and a beautiful gym. And I'm going to hire a building architect to design that building. Now, once the building's designed, I'm going to thank the architect, take their blueprints, and hire a construction crew to go build it. The architect does just that. They design it and never touch it. They go to meetings all day. They buy lots of lunches and dinners and drinks, presentations, but no. Now, the engineer is the construction crew that either builds that hotel or it builds the systems on the cloud. So the cloud engineer is a hands-on techie. They build the solutions at the command line, at the management console. They write code. They deploy the Linux systems and administer the Linux systems, which are most everything. They deploy Windows systems. They set up all the technology. Now, the cloud engineer will need to know Python, Bash shell scripting, Terraform. So, cloud architect, design, present, and sell. Cloud engineer, build. Cloud engineer, techie. Cloud architect, executive. Cloud engineer pay medium. Cloud architect pay sky high. Because the cloud architect brings money into the business. They're effectively sales. Where the cloud engineer is a cost center, they build it. So kind of those are your main differences. And the portfolio of an engineer and an architect are so different. It's often very challenging for our engineers to become architects. Because, Grace, I want you to go out tonight and understand the difference. Go outside and look at the sky tonight. Wait till it's really dark. I like looking at the moon, the Big Dipper, the Little Dipper, and all these beautiful stars and things. That's architect piece. The whole big blue, gray, black sky based on what time of night is. That's the architect world. Now here's the engineer world. Zoom in on the moon with a 200x telescope, because that's what the engineers have to do. They have to be focused in. But guess what? Then you can't see the sky anymore. You only can see parts of the moon. So that's why these jobs are so different. The roles are very different. They expect a techie to be an engineer, and they expect an executive to be the architect. Architects design, present, and sell. Cloud engineers build, code and configure. Great question, Grace. And Chris or Chow, you go to the next one. Please ask some questions in the chat box in the meantime. Douglas G. He was trying to tell me you need to be a sysadmin and work your way in the company. He was ignorant clueless. Yeah, you got to go talk to somebody better. I've never been a sysadmin, and I think that's the most ridiculous thing. 20 years ago, I got told, Michael, you must become a sysadmin or help desk before you can go to tech. And I laughed at the 10 people that told me that. I laughed at them. And 6 months later, I was a senior network engineer as a first job. A couple months into that, I was the lead architect at the world's largest ISP. It is complete and total nonsense, Douglas. Like I said, Delroy, Daniel, Jermaine, Coyote, Romanek, Jennifer, Balwinder was a stay-at-home mom who's now working as a cloud architect. I could go on and go on and go on. Heck, Richard Afukar joined my company 3 weeks later, was hired by AWS as well as a technical account manager, and that was his first job too. So that's nonsense. But there are some people, and there's some of them that really like people that go start at the bottom and work their way to the top. They're not the people that you want to work for. They're not at all, because these people don't value capabilities, knowledge, education, experience. They just think everybody's a grunt, and they treat you like garbage until you go through the paces. That's not a company for winners. That's a company for people that are going to go there and really die a slow death in their career. But normally good companies, no problem. AWS hires with no experience. We've seen Microsoft do it. We've seen JP Morgan Chase do it. We've seen CDW do it. We've seen Deloitte do it. We've seen Accenture do it. We've seen Capgemini do it. We've seen Bearing Point do it. Wow. Microsoft, AWS, Cisco, Bearing Point, Capgemini, Accenture, Deloitte, all hiring people with no experience. What do they know? They know that the capabilities to the job and competency matters more than experience. Experience is meaningless to me. Competency is meaningful. If somebody spends the next 10 years as a sysadmin and doesn't learn how to talk to people and has less emotional intelligence and learns to focus on the tech and not the transformation, they're the world's worst architect. But there are some companies that like that, but thankfully most no. But I'd say 1 out of 3 companies does feel this way. So we're looking for the other ones. Chris, let's go to the next one. Grace, what is a good project to work on to become real experience to become a cloud architect? Grace, I think you need to understand what is an architect. An architect designs, presents, and sells. So what do? We design, present, and sell. So what things look like architecture work? Well, if you were write thought leadership pieces, that's architecture work. If you were giving presentations somewhere, that's architecture work. If you were selling technology solutions, that's architecture work. If you built a new workflow or business processes for someone, that's architecture work. So here's the thing. There is no project that you can do. So Grace, what I did is I created architect projects for my students. And it cost a lot of time, effort, and money to build these things for my students. These are architect projects. Architect projects are as following. I have my students co-author books on AWS exams, Google exams, etc., because that's architecture things. I have my students, whenever possible, write thought leadership documentation. That's architect work. I have my students deliver presentations and do special things on social media to attract the world that they have architecture work. But you're going to need some very special things in order to do this. Now, Grace, I have my people do architecture projects. And here's the difference between a real architecture project and the silly business. The nonsense that's part of these Udemy courses and part of the certification courses, set up a Git thing, set up a WordPress site. No one cares. Why? Because I taught an 8-year-old to do them in less than 5 minutes. I'm not joking. Just wanted to see if an 8-year-old could do it, and they could. Now, projects that work, if you're not one of my students, here's the project I recommend you do. And if you are one of my students, you'll get to do it for a third of the cost as it will cost you on your own. And I don't really care as long as you get hired. So if you're one of my students, you will build a cloud. You'll be working with Active Directory servers. You'll be working with firewalls and VPN concentrators and file servers, whether that be server message block or NFS, building LAMP stacks. I mean, realistically, getting in and down and dirty, setting up databases the hard way. Those are the kind of things that are show that you do stuff. Now, remember, we don't touch the tech. We design, present, and sell. So why do I do labs with people? Well, somewhere along the line, someone's going to say, have you ever done this before? And I like to be able to say yes, because it matters. And two, what do employers really want, Grace? They don't care about certifications. They care about the following. Can you do the job? That's the most important thing. Next, can they trust you? The next thing they ask for is people that know what they know and know what they don't know, so they don't make mistakes, like the people that took down Facebook or what do you call it, Google, because of a BGP error. Next, they look for energetic, enthusiastic, and passionate people. Next, they look for emotionally intelligent people that bring out the best in others. After that, what else are they looking for? They're looking for people that are good team players and will go above and beyond. So now when you want to do these things, I encourage you to think about this. Those silly labs that are part of a Udemy course, not going to help you because everybody's doing them. The kind of labs we're talking about, creating your own Active Directory servers, building your own cloud, federating your cloud to that Active Directory server. Now you're in a hiring manager and they're asking you what you've done. I set up a WordPress site. That's like a little 8-year-old. I built a cloud. Oh, I built a cloud. See how strong that sounds. Now, when you're talking to the employer and you know the employer wants technical competency, who's more competent? Someone that can build an entire cloud or create AWS, Azure, or Google from scratch. Not a VPC, but the whole cloud. Or someone that learned how to build a WordPress site. Next, who knows more about their limitations? Someone that did a little WordPress site who doesn't even know what they don't know, or someone that built the cloud. Okay. Now, who's more energetic, enthusiastic, and passionate about the technology? The person that set up the WordPress site or the person that built the cloud? Who's willing to go above and beyond? I set up a WordPress site. I built a cloud. So I don't want you to be the kitten, and I love kittens. I want you to roar like a lion. A lion is the king of the jungle for a reason. It's the best, fastest, smartest, land out. Incredible. So be the lion. Don't be the kitten. And I love kittens. I like lions too. So those are the kind of things. Now, if you're in any one of our programs, the basic program, which right now is $350 with the discount, or our main live program, which is $700 with the discount, you'll get to do all this stuff. Build your clouds. Learn how to be a cloud architect. Be taught how the system design. Be taught the presentation skills. Be taught the sales skills, the business acumen, the leadership, executive presence, commission. And you'll get it for that price. Now, if you're not with me, Grace, you can still build the cloud, but here's what you're going to need to do. You're going to need to buy a server, and it's going to cost you at least $2,000. Again, my one course is $350, and the next course is $700, and in both of them, you will build the cloud. But if you don't want to take my training, go buy a server. It's going to be about $2,000. It must be a Xeon server because we need something that's going to be super compatible with VMware ESXi. And set up VMware ESXi on that server. And when you're done, set up containers on that server. Build the firewall on that server. Build a VPN concentrator on that server. Set up the LAMP stack on that server. Build a Linux file server. Build a Windows file server. Set up Active Directory. And build yourself a cloud. Now, the reason that server is going to cost you at least $2,000 is it needs to be between 3 to 5 years old, no more. You need a minimum of 16 cores, ideally 24 plus. You need a minimum of 128 gigs of RAM, and you need at least 3 SSD drives in RAID 0 or an NVMe drive to make it work, to give you the speed to set this environment up. Those are good projects to work. So go build a cloud. That's a program. That's a project. All my students build a cloud. They do it together. They do it independently. They love it, love it, love it. And I love putting it on the resume because then, my students get an internship with us and they can put it down like it's a job and they can list all the things that they're doing. And cloud building is one of them. So that's what I recommend you do. And if you're with us, you got a title. If you're on, at least put down a research and development section on your resume and show all these things that you're doing. Those are cloud architect projects. But it's not about real world experience. It's about competency. Experience means you've done something for a long time. Competency means you're good at it. And what's the difference? Let's say I had a cybersecurity expert, right? PhD, CISSP, CISM. Okay. And I got a little 8-year-old little girl with cute little pigtails, and she's hugging her cat in her arms, and she just hacks into the building that was secured by that person with 25 years of experience, the PhD, and 2 fancy security certifications. Who's more competent? The 8-year-old girl. Who gets fired? The expert. And who gets hired? The little 8-year-old little girl. So competency always matters more than experience. Great question, Grace. And let's go to the next one, Chris or Chow, who else is moving questions. Amika, what's the difference between a cloud architect and a solution architect? Well, Amika, outside of AWS, who basically calls a cloud architect an engineer and a solution architect does the cloud architect role, here's the main difference. A cloud architect like me will design a multi-cloud architecture for my customer, or a single cloud based upon it. If I need to set up a hybrid cloud, multi-cloud, I'm trained because I'm a cloud architect. So a cloud architect knows all the clouds. A solution architect works for AWS and only sells AWS stuff. A solution architect works for Azure and only sells Microsoft stuff. A solution architect works for Cisco and sells Cisco stuff. So that cloud architect is a little more closer to that enterprise architect. It pays more and there's much more career opportunities. Now, why does it matter to be a cloud architect and not a solution architect in today's world? 87% of customers are now on 2+ clouds, and 97% want to be on 2+ clouds. So if all you know is AWS, your employment is limited to just AWS for the most part. If you want to be able to work at a consulting firm like Accenture or Deloitte or a big bank or a big global retailer, you really need to be cloud architect knowledge. And if you have cloud architect knowledge, you're still much more valuable to the AWSs, the Googles, and the Azures, and the Microsofts. Now, Microsoft and Oracle have decided to collaborate on multi-cloud things. So they need cloud architects, not solution architects. So the primary difference is solution architect only knows one system, cloud architect knows all of them and how they work. So a cloud architect can be a solution architect in a minute. A solution architect will need retraining to be a cloud architect. We create cloud architects, and many of my graduates work with solution architects. So many of them do. Because AWS hires a lot of people without experience, as long as they're competent. I've got a sales rep interviewing with AWS right now who's never worked in tech in his life. AWS hires so many of our people. I mean, they hired Joe Millen, but he had a networking background, so let's be fair. They hired Jawad, and he actually had a cloud engineering background, which is fair. But Coyote never had any tech background whatsoever. And Yvonne never had any tech background. And AWS has hired so many of our people with no tech background. Because what do they want? Good, smart, competent, capable people with unbelievable attitudes. That's what they're looking for. They want people that make the world better. And all the companies know that it's near impossible to hire somebody good. Near impossible. So Mika, when they see somebody good, someone with capabilities, integrity, that they trust, that was honest on their interview, a good attitude, energy, and enthusiasm, even if they need to send you for training for a couple months, they're willing to do it, as long as your fundamentals are good. Now, it's all about knowing what is the underlying technology and how the technology works, not how to configure it. And, Mika, I had interviewed 1,000 AWS certified people that wanted to be an architect. And here's when we knew their training was wrong, which is what forced me to come out of retirement and do what we do, which is why our students get hired every day. I actually had someone I bought the 3 top selling courses. 2 were on Udemy. The other person was, let's just say, a bit of a goofball. He copies my social media messages every single day, but he doesn't know what we do and why we do it. And, he took these 3 courses, and after 3 days, he's like, Mike, guess what? I set up an EC2 instance in S3 bucket, and what are they? So for the solution architect or the cloud architect, it's not whether you can configure it. It's whether you know what it is. How does it work? How do you performance tune it? How do you make it improve business performance? So that's kind of the key. But solution architects, cloud architects, it's all about digital transformation. All about digital transformation. It's just whether it's one cloud or many clouds. Great question, Amika. Excellent, excellent, excellent question. Can you please tell me what the day of work for a cloud security architect is like? Absolutely, man. So here's a day in the life for all architects. Go to the office, attend a meeting, attend another meeting, attend another meeting, write something up, go take your client to lunch, attend a meeting, write a document, go home. The next day, you fly and you do an executive briefing, which is where you give sales presentations for 2 hours. Then, after that, you go to a meeting, another meeting, another meeting, another meeting, another meeting. The next day, you're working the booth at a conference, and you're answering people's questions at the conference. Hi, everybody, and you're taking clients to dinner and drinks. The day after that, you're still working the booth at the conference. The next day, you fly back, and that's your next day is airplane travel. Next week, guess what? Meeting for the first 8 hours of your day. The next day, 8 hours of meeting for the next day. The day after that, you go fly somewhere, maybe you're flying to England, and the day after that, you give presentation. On the flight home, you start working on documents for your presentation. The next week, you respond to a request for information, a request for a proposal, or a request for a query, and you build a large team of people to help you do it. The next day, you go to meetings all day long. The next day, you basically take your client to breakfast. Then you give a presentation. You then take the client to lunch. Then supervise some engineers that are touching the tech, doing a proof of concept. And you take them out for dinner and drinks, and you become their psychologist and help them diffuse from the way the customer mistreated them all the day, etc. So really, all we do is design, present, and sell. So that's the king. When I ask my graduates, and here's a graduate for us, hired. When our students are working, they've been our graduate. Now, of the last year, it's the joke that I ask all my students, do you code? And they say, Mike, I don't code. And I say, have you configured everything? And they laugh. They say, Mike, I don't touch the technology. And, even a few weeks ago, it was my birthday, we had to ruin one of my graduates. And he's like, he was talking for a few minutes, and he's like, I got to go buy some drinks for people. So that's the day. It's just going to be consulting, meeting. And in these meetings, you'll be collaborating with other cloud architects, providing your security background for them. You'll be parachuting in another meeting to talk to another person's security questions. And you will be literally doing security questions and answer sessions all day long. Security presentations all day long. Drawing up things in security all day long. But won't you be doing? Touching the technology. So this is a job where you got to be really good with Microsoft Word, Microsoft PowerPoint, Microsoft Excel, and a drawing program like Draw, IO, Lucidchart, or Visio. And when you're really good when you become a senior architect or an enterprise architect like me, here's what you do. You don't even use those drawing programs anymore. You take pieces of paper and you draw little pictures of them, and you take a photo of them or you scan them, and you send it to the graphics team, and they use Adobe InDesign to make them look beautiful for you. So design, present, sell, write, build business cases, negotiate deals. That's all we do. That's it. And it's the best job I've ever had. It pays incredibly well. And nobody's calling you at 3 o'clock in the morning to fix tech that doesn't work. They leave that for the engineers. So that's what architects do. The engineers are the genius people that build it and make sure it works. We need both. Equally important roles, just different. Nirav, which AWS cert is good for business? None. There's no certification that teaches business. The closest thing that you have to a business certification is a master's in business administration. And the reality is, Nirav, those of us that have been executives in our career, many of us did an MBA, but realize the MBA doesn't teach you the critical business stuff. What? What are those critical business things that are not taught in a master's in business program? So if you're bent and concerned about getting paper, get an MBA. Because there's no AWS certification that's good for business. None. So think about the MBA. Now realize, Nirav, in an MBA program, they don't coach soft skills. So you're going to need to buy some soft skills training or take training like ours. Also realize in an MBA, they're not good on leadership skills. They teach some management, but not enough on leadership. So you'll need some management training. Now, when you do an MBA, which is your business cert, realize they don't really talk about CXO relevance training. So you're going to have to get real good at CXO relevancy. Now, when you're in your MBA program, they don't really teach negotiation skills well enough. So you're going to need some training in that. Now, when you're in your MBA program, they're going to teach you how to write like a student. Please give me a 30-page document that's cited in American Psychiatric Association format. The reality is, as an executive or an architect, we need to go from that 30 pages and have the same amount of content in 2 pages. So we need to relearn the way they write. And we don't use American Psychiatric Association format for anything other than medical papers. In the business, it's never used. So there's that. So if you're looking for a business cert, get an MBA. Now, if you're looking to be great, learn those things that I told you. But realize there's no certification for business. And that's the whole point. These certifications are for low-level, entry-level, low-paying positions. They don't get you great jobs. They're not going to get a cloud architect job. They're not going to get a cloud engineer job. They're not going to get any good job. They'll get sysadmin jobs or help desk jobs. That's it. And if that's your goal, fine. But if your goal is higher, realize it is not the path. You need something different. Now, Narav, certifications worked 30 years ago. And here's why 25, 30 years ago they worked. We didn't have all these websites on the internet where you could buy copies of the exam. We didn't have people that didn't know the technology teaching courses on Udemy for $10. We can pass a course and get all irrelevant, incorrect information, but you passed an exam, but you don't know how to do the job. And we didn't have everybody that was certified. So in those days, in order to get certified, you had to read the books, read the Internet Engineering Task Force RFCs, read the Institute of Electrical Engineers specifications, and really get down and dirty and learn it, because there were no practice exams and there were no silly courses which taught you the certification. They taught you the knowledge that you needed to have. They don't have that anymore. Now, also, Narav, in the old days when certifications mattered, the tech never worked right. So what did we really want to hire? We were hiring people that wouldn't shower, that didn't know how to talk to people, that we could put in a basement and they can code or configure so well that we'd feed them too, so they didn't leave. We hid them from our customers. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind. Certifications, not the way for anything other than the entry, most junior level things, such as a help desk or sysadmin. Let's go to the next one, Chris. And if you've got some questions, please ask them. We'll get to them. Bro, how can one get an attractive resume with zero experience with just training and knowledge? So, Bara, people are looking for competency, not experience. I can give you a list of people that are hired with zero experience. How do you get an attractive resume? Well, you first need to know what the job is. That's the biggest disconnect. 90% of the people that don't know it, they put cloud architect, pipe cloud engineer, configured this on the resume. Great. Set up, learn Python, learn DevOps, learn sysops. That's not an architect. Now, Burra, for people that truly know what an architect is, like our student, we actually coach them into putting down the things that are real that employers want to see based upon their unique experience. And that's when you get to learn what it is. Nobody is concerned about experience. They put it down on paper. What they're concerned about is, can you do the job? Can you do the job? Competency is a proxy for experience, but they're not related. I remember when I first learned to practice medicine, apparently I was so good at it that while I was doing my clinical rotations, one of the doctors, while I was still a student, decided to pay me. He called the school and said, I like Mike so much. I used to be an orthopedic surgeon, gave it up. I used to be an anesthesiologist, gave it up. And now I do general medicine. Can Mike do his anesthesiology rotation in my office? Can Mike do his orthopedic surgery rotation in my office? And can I pay Mike? Because I really love the guy. I was getting paid and I didn't even have experience. I didn't even graduate. Now, guess what? I've known doctors with 50 years experience that kill people every day because they're so incompetent. Who do you want? Someone that's brand new, but's great and smart and capable, or someone that's been around for a while that's horrible? Competency and experience are two different things. Now, if you look at a job description, and we go straight to the hiring manager and skip HR, HR is looking for experience because HR doesn't know how to check your competency. So they assume if you've done something for a long period of time, you must know how to do it. That's insanity. Bro, when was the last time you went to a restaurant? When was the last time you called your cable company? When was the last time you went to a store and somebody was so bad you wanted to say, is this your first day? Or you may have said, is this your first day? And they said, no, I've been here for 10 years. Competency, experience, not the thing. You got to be competent. And then you need to position it on your resume. And the resume needs to show what you can do. Robert Welch is one of my students. He gets 20 interview requests per day. 20! Because his resume is good. Now, Burra, in class, when I do our resume training, which we do once per month, and we're doing a free one, actually, which you can sign up for, my average student tells me that they have a big problem after we redo their resume and LinkedIn profile. Here's the problem they have. They're still in my school. They're 2 months into my program. They need 6 more months to be hireable. And they're getting hammered by recruiters and hiring managers saying, I want to talk to you. And their biggest challenge is telling the hiring managers, I'm not looking for a career change right now, but can we keep in touch? Because in approximately 6 months, I might be. So it's not a challenge. You don't realize what the demand actually is for these architect jobs. Hundreds of thousands of open, unhireable positions. There's nobody out there that can do the job. So companies have gotten very relaxed into looking for someone that knows how to do the job versus someone that's been doing the job. There's just nobody that can do it. And, it's funny because when I speak to hiring managers, I speak to the recruiters almost every day. I speak to CEOs, CIOs. And here's what they tell us. They're like, Mike, can you get me someone that can do system design? I get all these people, they're software engineers, and they want to pretend they know architecture, but they know software development and not architecture. It's not that hard to get people to reach out to you with the right stuff. So, Burra, I want you to think about this. When I talked about the brand of the cloud architect, people buy based upon brands. I want a really fast car. If you got money and you can afford it, you think Ferrari, you think Lamborghini, you think McLaren. Great. I want a computer that's easy to use and fun. You think Apple. You'll pay twice as much for a Mac than a Windows machine too. And it's not better tech, but you like it, right? So BMW's got a strong brand. Mercedes has a strong brand. And that's what attracts people. It's the brand. Now, Burra, here's where people go wrong. If the brand of the architect is a digital transformation specialist, an executive, a business professional, and your resume shows that, you will get bombarded with calls. Now, if you want to be an architect and your thing's filled with certifications and SysOps and DevOps and Python, you won't get the good architect interviews. You get engineering interviews, but you won't get architecture ones. So that's a D. It's not that companies are looking for experience. They're looking for competency. Competency. Burr, how hard is it to find competency? I'll let you know a little secret. It was about a week ago. I was speaking to a friend of mine, and she says, Mike, I need 2 things in a technology professional. Someone that can actually do the job, which I can't find, and someone that I can tolerate. That's how hard it actually is. Someone that I can tolerate. It's that hard. Burra, before I started this company, I interviewed 5,000 people. 5,000. Didn't have any hired? 10. Now, of the 10, 3 of them didn't know how to do the job at all. I hired them because of their attitude. Because I knew I could train them and they turned out great. One of them was a rock star. And everybody else was mediocre. And why did I hire mediocre? Because I got told by management, hire by the end of the week or lose the requisition or the ability to hire the person. So I hired mediocre and trained them. That's how hard it actually is to find somebody. In 5,000 interviews, I found 1 rock star. I found 3 people that I knew would become rock stars with the right training. We trained them. The rest were just good enough. Be great, the world will notice you. Be Simone Biles, the world will chase you. Be Usain Bolt, the world will chase you. Swim like Michael Phelps, the world will chase you. And also our brand is pretty helpful because, we're in 30 to 50 magazines, at this point, national TV shows. The world actually interviews our students just because they're part of Go Cloud Careers. When, hey, Mike, I'm very curious. If I can only get really good at one of the single soft skills, what is your pick? Well, you can't just pick one. If you do, you'll be unemployed sitting on the sidelines. Now, of the soft skills, I would say emotional intelligence is probably the biggest factor. Statistically speaking, emotional intelligence is the biggest predictor of your long-term success. In average paying jobs, not tech jobs, the average difference in salary between someone with higher levels of emotional intelligence versus less is $29,600 per year. Now, training people heavily in soft skills typically has a 30+% impact on someone's salary. So if you're dealing with a job like a cloud architect and you train someone's soft skills, you're dealing with about a $50,000 plus pay rise. Now, when you add the emotional intelligence in there, you're dealing with another $30,000 pay rise. So focusing on soft skills and emotional intelligence on average will raise somebody's salary about $80,000 a year for the average cloud architect on average. Now compare that to a certification, which adds no value to your salary after you get the first one or two. So emotional intelligence, by far the best. Statistically speaking, emotional intelligence is the best predictor of long-term career success. So what is emotional intelligence? Emotional intelligence is the ability to manage your emotions and recognize them and manage other people's emotions. To take a challenging situation and turn it into a good situation, to diffuse challenging situations, to bring out the best in others, to be able to walk into a company that's got 10 people on your team and make them all feel so good that they all work twice as much, get twice as much done in the same amount of time, deliver great results for the team, your manager gets promoted and you all get promoted too. So soft skills, soft skills, soft skills, soft skills, soft skills. I'll go back to Delroy back because I really love the guy. He came visited my house. He's just such a nice guy. He was one of my students. So about a year ago, he signed up for my program. He was working as an emergency medical technician, did a bunch of certifications, and nobody would hire him. Usual. Spent like 10 grand on a boot camp. Nobody would hire him. Went on 20, 30, 40 interviews, and people laughed at him. Came into our program. We fixed his resume, and Brandon, the first 3 weeks, we were a much smaller company and we were able to do it in those days. That fast. He was hired within 3 weeks in security. Now, a total year past, he was in my program. Now he's working at CDW as a fantastic cloud security architect. And what was really interesting is he went from not getting hired by anybody to, after working on soft skills, he had 3 job offers within the first month. He accepted one. And after the work we did on his branding, every day he had multiple recruiters reaching out to him. When he finally came to getting his first cloud architect job, he delayed it a couple months because he was hanging out in Grenada working from home. Because he's West Indian, he was really enjoying the Caribbean. He's a really fun guy. And while he was over there, he came back. He had 3 job offers. He accepted one of them. And let me tell you, all 3 offers he had were from A players, the world's greatest company. 24 years old, no experience whatsoever. But he had some of the best soft skills. I encourage you to look at the Delroy Bat video. Chris or Eddie or Chow or somebody, can you post a link to that video so we can see what was in Delroy Bat's eyes? Actually, post a link to the Daniel Bosa one. Look at what was in his eyes. Look at how these young men present themselves. Why am I using the young examples instead of the other examples I have? Because it's nothing to get a 40-year-old hired, because they've got life experience and wisdom. And it's challenging to get a 20-something-year-old hired with 0 experience work at all. And these are 2 people who've got work experience, without minimal work experience, no tech experience, that are all working. So emotional intelligence first, but soft skills are that critical. Hakeem, yesterday's Zoom call was amazing. Cloud hired Hakeem, fantastic. That's what I like. I love running these architecture calls. I like putting the pieces together. And I really like it when I see my students go, got it. Now, one day at our architecture clicks, and that's great. And then my next favorite thing is when one of us gets cloud hired. I'll tell you, it'll be 11 o'clock at night. And me and Chris and Alonzo, we're all going to be celebrating a cloud hired, which is pretty much every day. So, Hakeem, it was wonderful having you. I'm thrilled you were there. And let's get you cloud hired as soon as possible. That's my big goal. I wouldn't do this for any other reason other than cloud hired. People every day, they're like, Mike, can I have a certificate? I'm like, sure, you could if you want. Here's a piece of paper. But what do you want? A piece of paper or a job? We're all outcomes focused. Love getting people hired. So thrilled you were there, and thank you so much. Love hearing these kind of things. While we're at it, I see the link is flashing. I should mention it. 30% off. Oh, good. Internet came back. Well, maybe I don't have to switch to a different internet service provider. Okay, Subram, let's get to your question. How can you become Azure architecture? What I need to learn? Can you suggest me where I prepare? Okay, so Subram, here's what you need to learn. Realize that these jobs are executive jobs. What this means as follows is you can't get it from a certification. What you will need will be the following. You will need to develop a high level of business acumen because the cloud architect or solution architect is a business executive. You will need to develop extremely good presentation skills because you're going to be giving presentations every day. You will need to deliver good sales skills because you're going to be selling every day. You will need to develop extremely good management skills because what's going to happen is as follows. You're going to be leading large teams of engineers that are going to do proof of concept and building your designs. You will be presenting at conferences with more presentation skills. You will need to be negotiating deals upwards of $1 billion. So you're going to need some extremely good business negotiation skills. Now you're going to be presenting in front of a global audience. So those are the kind of things that you need to do and kind of keep that. So now that you know the business executive components of the job, now you need to learn what are the tech components of the job. And the things that are in the Azure Solution Architect Expert or the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional don't even scratch the surface of what architects do. So there's nowhere close in that professional level like the Azure Expert or the AWS Certified Solutions Architect Professional that's enough. So what are the tech things that you're going to need to learn? Well, you're going to need to learn BGP and how to design it, implement it, make it work, make it tune it. Now, after that, what else you're going to need to learn? You will need to learn IP addressing, subnetting, supernetting, route summarization, route aggregation. After that, you will need to know WAN technologies, such as when to use an SSL-based VPN versus an IPsec-based VPN, versus a private line versus Ethernet over MPLS versus software-defined networking versus SASE. Now, you will need to know NAT, and NAT is not just translating an address to go to the internet. You will need to know one-to-one NAT, one-to-many NAT, static NAT, dynamic NAT, what happens with company mergers, and all these other kind of things. Next, you will need to know switching, and none of this stuff is covered in certifications, except for Cisco ones. You will need to know VLANs, VLAN tagging, VLAN trunking, spanning tree, rapid spanning tree, port channel, ether channel link aggregation groups on the switching side. You will need to have good knowledge of ARP and proxy ARP and DNS and DHCP. You probably should know some interior gateway protocol information such as OSPF. Now, next, you need to know the data center stuff, which includes servers and server virtualization, containers and container orchestration, storage area networks such as block storage, object storage, file servers and file serving protocols such as server message block and NFS. Next, you will need to know databases and when to use them and how to architect them, whether they be relational databases or NoSQL databases. And in most cases, realize things like DynamoDB, Amazon Aurora, Microsoft, God, I'm drawing a blank right now on their NoSQL database. Google Cloud Bigtable on the Google side, Microsoft Cosmos DB. We can't use them, and here's why we can't use them. They're proprietary, which means we can't use them multi-cloud, and 87% of customers are multi-cloud. So it's about knowing the databases and how and where. Next is knowing load balancers and when to use a network load balancer versus an application load balancer, when to create load balancer sandwiches, how and why are you tuning it for performance. Next, there's the security stuff. Next generation firewalls, not the stuff that's in your course. IDS, IPS systems, VPN concentrators. Now, you really also need to know the business applications that are used for the digital transformation, which includes CRP systems, ERP systems, CRM systems, supply chain applications, unified communications, anything necessary. And realize that the job is to design it, present it, and sell it. We never touch the technology. So those are the things you need to learn. Realize they're not taught in certifications. Half of this stuff is taught in an MBA program. Half of this stuff is really system design, not system configuration. So there's that. So you can become a cloud architect, an Azure architect with our Cloud Architect Career Development Program, where you can learn the things that I've given you. The things that I've given you are approximately 50,000 pages of reading on the tech side. And, well, probably about 50,000 pages of reading together. It takes us 500 hours to do it in our accelerated training program, but those are the skills to become an Azure architect. If you do that, you'll be hired. But those are what you need to know. All high-value skills. Chris, let's go to the next one. LM. In your experience with interviewing, is there a particular question that stands out and catches the interview's attention? Well, it's how you do the interview, LM. How? And I'm going to do a free practice interview session next week. I think it's next week. It's going to be, I think, on the 7th. So, that may be next week. It may be the week after that. But I'd recommend you actually joining the practice interview session. LM, what is it that you need to convince the hiring manager? You need to convince the hiring manager that you are competent, trustworthy, knowledgeable of what you know and what you don't know, energetic, enthusiastic, and passionate about the work, willing to go above and beyond, and being a great team player and someone that can bring out the best in others. So LM, it's not just how a particular question, it's how you respond to questions. For example, in the first 5,000 interviews I did, 4,950 people lied to me. How many of those people do you think I hired? 0. I don't hire anybody that I can't trust. LM, it's so bad with regards to people lying on interviews. So I don't eat sugar. I don't eat butter. I don't eat flour. I live on the paleo diet. So grains, dairy, legumes are out for me. I just eat meats, lean meats, fruits, and vegetables, and seafood, things like that. So there's that. Now, in my office, I used to keep a giant cookie jar that looked like the Cookie Monster, because I think they always thought the Cookie Monster was cool. And when people would lie to me on an interview, have a cookie, have a cookie, have a cookie. And why did I give out so many cookies, LM? Because I don't like to be lied to. And the second somebody lied to me on an interview, 4,950 out of 5,000, have a cookie. They ate cookies. I didn't have to listen to the person because they couldn't talk with food in their mouth. I escorted them out of the room. Now, LM, if you ask somebody a question that they don't know, what does the majority of people do? They bluff. BGP, Bridging Gap Protocol, is a protocol that was in my AWS Advanced Networking thing, and it's used to connect to AWS. We laugh and say, okay, leave. Now, by comparison, if I asked somebody about BGP and they didn't know, instead of making up something stupid like I just did, they could say, LM, I'm sorry I've not had the chance to really work with BGP yet, but I'm highly energetic, I'm highly enthusiastic, I'm highly motivated about technology, and I love it. I know what I know, LM, and I know what I don't know, and I can find the answers to things very quickly. And if I was part of your team and this was important to you, I'd stay up all night and read 1,000 pages a day to make sure that I was good at it. I'm willing to go above and beyond. I'm a great team player, but I've not had a lot of experience on this. But you know what, LM? I got a lot of experience on BGP, load balancers, and next generation firewalls. And if you'd like to talk about my competency, I'd love to discuss these with you. There's that. LM, in the beginning of the thing, there's a tell me about yourself question. You gotta win. You gotta win. Now, LM, why should I hire you? You got to be prepared to sell them why they need you on your team. So it's really about when you're interviewing someone, do they have executive presence? Hi, my name is Mike and I'm a cloud architect. Or, hi, my name is Mike. I'm a cloud architect and I can help you. First time, monotone. Second time with some executive presence or some gravitas. Competency. Can I show competency on that interview? And that's based upon how you ask a question. LM, here's an example. Tell me about object storage. AWS is called S3. You create a bucket. It's not object storage. Well, if you answered it, object storage is a type of storage area network, which means the limitation on its performance is based upon the network. Now, being a storage area network, what we're really talking about is big giant systems with RAID arrays that are filled with hard drives and some very specific networking that plugs into the back of the servers or the back of the technology. The way object storage works is we take data and we break that data down into an object, and each object has metadata. Why this is so important, blah, 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 and I could keep going. So the way we communicate what we know will show great or not great. Now, LM, where do most people go wrong? Most people focus on coding and configuring. No, we don't code or configure anything as an architect. But here's the thing. If somebody's focused on the coding and the configuring, guess what they're not focused on? Architecture, designing, presenting, and sell it. And LM, here's the thing. If you are the world's greatest network engineer, meaning you can do it all, right? And you know it all. And I interview you, and I ask you about the type of LSAs that exist in a stub area, and you can't answer it in a clear, concise manner, I think you don't know it. In the end, you couldn't really know it. So when we deal with interviews, it's all related to executive presence, inspiring confidence in me. If you don't have executive presence, I'm less likely to talk to you. Can you establish rapport in the beginning of the interview? Because if you do, everything you do will sound sweeter and be better received by the employer. Can you answer the technology questions and what is the tech, how does it work, and why we should use it in a manner that's followable? Can you read your audience and make sure you're presenting it to them? When you identify the person in the room, are they visual, auditory, or kinesthetic? You better figure that out in the first 10 seconds if you want to communicate and have a real conversation. You probably should also figure out if they're a functional leader, an analytical leader, or an intuitive leader, because it's going to change your answers. An intuitive leader like me, you got to talk vision. An analytical leader like Chris on the other side of this, you got to give them numbers. You give me numbers, I got a headache. You give Chris numbers, he's like, oh yeah, this juicy number, this is great, I can dig into this. So you also have to do that. And then it's knowing how to sell, LM. In life, we're always selling. Selling. You got to sell the manager why you're the right person to do the job. So it's not one question, LM. It's the whole holistic package. And it all goes down to your executive communication skills, your presentation skills, your sales skills, your emotional intelligence, your business acumen, and how well you can read the room. We teach all these things, by the way, LM. But those are the things that really matter. So that's how you project it. And that's how you show you're the right person for the job. By proving it to them when you communicate with them. Sabine. AWS, Azure, and Google Venomous training help you become your cloud engineer program? Sabine, no, we train everything in our program. People can do fundamental training before us, and they can wait 6 to 8 months of their time doing fundamentals training, and then come to us, and they're going to be completely new retrained from scratch until they get hired, or they could just do the training for us. I have no prerequisites for all of my programs because I know, unless you've been a network architect or a network engineer, chances are this cloud stuff is foreign to you. And why? Why do the only people that really get this, do they usually come from network engineering and data center engineering backgrounds? Because what is the cloud? It's a network in a data center that's virtualized. What's a cloud architect do? Cloud architect designs the plan to take the stuff from the network and the data center to the cloud. What's the cloud engineer do? They build the network and data center stuff in the cloud. So, look, IP networking is good. Fundamental training from the cloud providers is nothing because it's the name of a service and how to configure that service. You are not concerned as a cloud engineer as the name of any service. You are concerned in what is the tech that works and how do we use it and how do we tune it and how do we optimize it? How do we make it better? How do we make it scale? Not the junior level configuration that's taught there. So the fundamentals that you need to understand are not covered in these fundamental training. I'm a system, and I want to go from my system to my default gateway, and I do a DNS search, right? And it tells me that the IP address of gocloudcareers.com is XYZ. Great. I then look at my routing table as a PC and see that I have a default gateway. But I also need to figure out the MAC address of that website. So I need to do an ARP broadcast to get it. Now that router is going to proxy respond to that ARP and say, I have that MAC address, and the packet will get forwarded. See, that kind of stuff, what's going on behind the scenes, and that knowledge is critical to be a cloud engineer, and none of that's covered in their fundamentals training. So when you look at the cloud provider's fundamentals training, what is it really? It almost as if they're trying to take a career that requires professionalism and teach you just enough nonsense that they can pay you $10 to $15 an hour as a tech. Kind of like the people that when you call the phone company, you get something, you got a low-paid employee on the other end of the phone that's doing this. Now, that's different than a real cloud engineer that's a very high-paid position, or a real cloud architect, which is an even higher-paid position. So the fundamentals training by the cloud providers are trying to get you used to selling their stuff, used to the proprietary way of thinking, and used to get you to say, okay, I got something, I'm going to recommend AWS or Azure. But there's not enough there. So look, I encourage people to take training from every place they can get it. Get as much quality training as you can. Get some from us, get some from AWS, get some from Cisco, get some from Fortinet, get some from Checkpoint, get it from the main players. But our program starts at the beginning, and goes all the way to the end. What does the first part of our program cover? Well, Style Plus, what are the bigger challenges for the architect? The architect is doing the following. The architect has to design, present, and sell. Now, which are the harder skills to learn? How to design it, or how to present it and sell it? For most people, that's how to present it and sell it. Because as architects, we never touch the technology. So in the beginning of our program, we front load it with soft skills. What else do we front load our program with? Well, career planning, because we want to determine what your goals are so that we can help you build your custom development plan specifically to get you to your goals. So the beginning is determining what you want to do. And then it's helping you build the plan. And then it's building the foundation for the soft skills, communication skills, executive presence. And it's things like, there's a video on Tell Me About Yourself. Why do we do this? Well, a couple of reasons. One is we want to get to know you, want to get to know your goals. But more importantly, it's the first question on most interview. So from the beginning, first day, you're actually focused in our program about how do you get hired? So I'd say the beginning parts of it, we focus on the foundations, building your plan, determining what you want to be to help you get there. Simultaneously, while we're doing that, in the pre-recorded things, in the live classes, you're getting architect training and leadership training every time we do a class. And then midway through our course, that's when you get into the deep tech stuff, cloud building and AWS training and Azure training and data center training and networking training. But I got to start you out with building your plan. If you don't have a plan, so as the expression says, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And I don't want any student that fails. I want every student that wins. Take advantage of our free LinkedIn and resume workshop. It's going to be a great experience. Style Plus, do I recommend Windows for design, or currently you have a Mac? It doesn't matter. All what we use, Style Plus, is in designing for the most part, is Microsoft Word, Microsoft PowerPoint, and Microsoft Excel. Draw.io and Lucidchart, which are the predominant ones people use today, are all browser-based, so it really doesn't matter. Remember, all you're going to be using your computer for is designing, presenting, and selling. We don't touch the tech, so it really doesn't matter. Now, if you were an engineer, guess what? Things like SSH are based on Mac and Linux systems, and you don't need external clients like PuTTY. So all this can be done on that. So when do you get off of a Mac? When you have to run real industrial applications. I'm streaming on a Mac right now because I prefer the Mac, but let's be fair. My Threadripper system with 64 cores and a half a terabyte of RAM does a much better job of streaming than my Mac. But for what we do, Word, PowerPoint, Excel, it doesn't matter what you use. You can even use a Linux system. And I know architects that are doing it on Linux too. Design, present, and sell. Chris, you can go to the next one. MS, you just got your solutions architect and don't have any experience besides that. I've been studying it. Should you apply for an entry level, or can I count other IT experience you have? Well, I don't know what your other IT experience that you have is. I'm going to tell you one thing. If all you have is a certified solution architect professional, I wouldn't recommend applying for any jobs until you got training for the job that you actually want, unless you have other experience. So if you've got other experience, sometimes that can make up for it. So the question is, what other kind of experience do you have? Because if you've been a network engineer for 10 years, and I had one, his first cloud job was a senior solution architect at AWS, because he had real experience, networking experience. Now, if you've been a software developer for the last 10 years, you still have tech experience, but this is going to be totally different. And you could try applying, and if you get rejected, which in most cases you'll be rejected, guess what? There's that. So it really depends on what you've actually done. You said cybersecurity management. I don't know what that means. What does that mean? Are you designing the security end-to-end design? Are you configuring a firewall? Are you doing vulnerability management scans? What are you doing? Because cybersecurity management can mean managing a team, or it could mean something completely different. So we need to move on to the next, because I don't know what he's actually done in his past. Now he says managing the team. Okay, so managing a team. Now that's good news. You've got management experience. Love that. So if all you've done is management and you have no tech background, realistically speaking, you can basically be a manager. If you want to be an architect, you're going to need to get some architect training. And that means training on the network and the data center technologies that we talked about a few minutes ago. It also means the business acumen, which you may have some as a manager. I don't know. I don't know what level of management you actually are. Meaning, if you're at a company like a Cisco and you're a director, that's the right level of management. If you're at a small company, so those are the kind of managements that we're really talking about, that kind of management. Because the job here, like if you join most companies, an enterprise architect or a cloud architect, you're talking with a director level position. So you're going to have extreme executive presence, extreme emotional intelligence, leadership skills as if you were a director or a VP, sales skills, executive presence, ROI modeling. Now on the tech side, you need to have that networking knowledge, BGP knowledge, IP addressing knowledge, switching knowledge, WAN technology knowledge of IP protocols, knowledge of network address translation and all the uses, the block storages, the file storages, the object storages, and how to put all the pieces and parts together. What kind of databases to use, when to use them, how to architect them across multiple clouds, how to secure the environments, which you may know, you're probably got some good familiarity with it. But do you know how to design the end-to-end security architecture? If you do, great, because it's going to be like that. So the management is probably a better preparation than if you're working as, say, a software engineer. So no, I would count the other experience that you have. But realize, for the most part, that you may need some additional training. But you may get away with it because you've been a manager. So you could try it. And if not, take a course like ours and we'll get you hired. Is there a workshop only for cloud engineering or architects? Yeah, the resume workshop is for cloud engineers and cloud architects. But those same principles will apply for other careers. So anybody could potentially, that desires a career in tech, could attend it and still get ahead. We would use it for others. Hi, Mike, you just graduated and been learning from your videos, which made you pretty good at most skills for a solution architect. But Amazon is experienced guys. That's not true. Amazon hires people with no experience every single day of the week. So, OG, if you've done our YouTube videos, you haven't learned how to be an architect. Our YouTube videos, we talk about some stuff, but you haven't learned how to become an architect yet. I will tell you right now, AWS hires people constantly with no experience. Constantly. They hired Richard Afokar with no experience. They hired Ivan Tamba with no experience. They hired Coyote with no experience. Joe Millen's only experience was networking and never did anything else. My people don't do sysops or DevOps roles or sysadmin roles. So they hire people constantly, but you have to have the right skills. What I do on YouTube is free tech stuff and as much as I can give away for free, but it's not enough to get your first cloud architect job. If you want your first cloud architect job, you're going to need training. I don't know how to tell you any other way. Daniel Boso, JP Morgan Chase, didn't graduate high school. I'm going to say this again, high school dropout without a GED, working as there. Jennifer Emu just got hired by JP Morgan Chase. And what was her last job? She was a mental health technician. Who else recently? Jermaine was a landscaper who just got hired. Val Winder was a stay-at-home mom who just got hired by Microsoft. Yvonne was hired by AWS working as a waiter in Atlanta as his last job. Coyote was a college student. I don't know what you're talking about, OG. Every day, one of my students with no background and experience gets hired as a cloud architect. What you need to do is the following. Get your cloud architect training. I love YouTube, but I can't give you all on YouTube what you truly need to get hired. That's why we have our cloud architect career development program. What to do is get cloud architect training and get hired. I don't teach system design on YouTube. I don't really give people's presentation skills training on YouTube. I don't teach people how to do ROI modeling on YouTube. I can't correct your executive communication skills on YouTube. I can't check your business acumen on YouTube. I mean, I try and do as much as I can for free on YouTube, but there's a difference between architect training, curated training, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, all the way to step 500 in our 500 hours of architect training, and what actually exists on YouTube. Because I can't put it on YouTube. There's no way for me to set it up. I can't communicate with you. I can't have you design an architecture and check it for feedback. I can't have you give a presentation and tell you what you need to do. I can't interview you. And what we do in our classes is architect training. What I do on YouTube is basically saying all that garbage that's out there that people charge for, it's garbage. Don't waste your money on it, and I do it for free so that you don't learn things incorrectly. But what we do in our live training is different than what we're able to provide for free. They're just not in the same universe or world. Okay, then Chris, let's go to the next one. Oh, gee, glad you mentioned that. Not just Amazon, but it's nearly impossible to get any cloud-related job with sysadmin. Ray, it's nothing. It's simple. If you're trained right, you can easily get a job. If what you've done is the certified solution architect professional, the DevOps professional, the SysOps certification, the cloud certification, you want a job, you're not getting one. I'm going to tell you right now, if your approach to training is certification, you're unemployable. If all you did was certification, you were 100% unemployable without experience. And here's why. They know that what's covered in those certifications is garbage. It's worthless. I mean, it's truly almost worthless. So they can't hire you if all your training is a certification because they know you don't know. Now, I just gave you a list of people. I mean, I've got landscapers and high school dropouts getting cloud architect jobs. And they're not just getting hired by AWS. They're getting hired by Microsoft. They're getting hired by Cisco. They're getting hired by JP Morgan Chase. They're getting hired by CDW. They're getting hired by Apple. They're getting hired by Deloitte, Bearing Point, Acceptare, Capgemini. Big, big, big players. And many of them have no experience whatsoever. And nobody cares because they're competent. But if all you have is certifications, I'm going to tell you right now, you can't get any job. And maybe if you're lucky, after 2 years, you can get a sysadmin job. If you're lucky. And if your only interaction is through HR, and you don't know how to make the world come to you like our students, you're not going to be able to prove to HR you know it, and here's why. Let's say I have an HR person, and I have a great HR person. She was the chief people officer for lots of companies. And if she had to do your interview, Ray, she'd look at your resume and say, I don't know anything about architects, so what I'd have to do is this following. I would put down 20 years experience and hope that if you've done something for a long time, you'd dare. Now, Ray Barrios, here's exactly what happened. HR puts down stupid things in the job description. We then interview the people after HR bypasses their stuff. And we don't hire any of them. So what do we always do? We always call our recruiter and say, I call Christina Marino in New York constantly. And I say, Christina, I need a cloud architect. And she says, what are you concerned about? And I say, leadership skills, sales skills, executive presence, business acumen, emotional intelligence. And she says, any specific tech background? And I say, I don't care. I need somebody that can do the job. I interview the person and hire them. I've hired more people with zero experience in my life. My hiring manager hired me for my first job, which was a senior engineer with no experience in my life. I can give you example after example after example after example after example. But if your study plan is certification, you will not get hired without experience. If you train like an architect, you'll get hired. Doctors don't become flight attendants and then landscapers and then lawyers to become a doctor. They don't work as nurses first and medical assistants and then pharmacists first. They train for the job. Airplane pilots don't work as mechanics and flight attendants to get to their job, and architects don't need to too. You need the right skills. The right skills. And sure, Amazon hires lots of people. I have a sales rep that's doing an interview with AWS today, and he's never worked in tech in his life. He sold consumer products. If someone's willing to interview you, they're willing to hire you. Now, Ray, I'm going to tell you one thing. If you interview and it's a bad interview, they'll say, come back when you have more experience, because it sounds very polite. But, that's the key. That's the key. And then, Chris, we go to the next one. And again, the live classes are much different from what's shown on YouTube. Totally different experience. Yes, absolutely. I give away as much for free as feasible. But what I hold back in our paid courses is to give my students a competitive advantage against everybody else in the world. Look, being over my YouTube channel, you're 10 steps ahead of if you took one of those 4 courses, 4 certification providers courses with what we give you for free. But what we teach in class, I mean, this is a real expensive program. We're just offering at our cost because we want you to get hired, and I don't need to work. I don't need to work at all. I had a great architecture career. I was retired at 34. I came out of retirement because I knew what existed out there, and I knew that nobody would get hired with the current training. They'd be told, come back when you have more experience, which is not experience. It's you need to be good at the job. So thanks, Anakin. Yes, we were very different. You did your SAA and it feels like more search training, just like you push products. That's exactly what it is. We don't even learn the types of databases, really. No, you can't. They focus on their proprietary stuff that they want you to use. And why do they do it? If you're stuck on Aurora, you can't leave. It's real hard to leave. So they want you to use proprietary services. Innovation comes from open source services. Cloud EPMS, if you're interviewed for a solution architect role, and you're not going to be best hands-on experience. How you get interviewed is related to how you do the design. Cloud EPMS, I've never been on an interview where I didn't get hired. And when someone asks me about something technical, I'll answer it. Now, a lot of people seem to think configuring equals knowledge. I want you to truly understand it. Here, first thing I want you to do to Cloud EPMS is the following. I want you to get used to using a screwdriver. I want you getting used to using a hammer. Get used to working with the pliers. Get real good at your hands-on skills. Now design a hotel for me. You won't know how. And the employers know this. Now, go configure your EC2 instance. Go ahead and do it. Go up and set your S3 bucket. Go do it. Now, design an end-to-end system to me with 40,000 subnets and 100,000 servers. You won't know where to begin. So if your experience is, I can configure this, try it on an interview. I escort people out of the interview the second they try and describe this. Now, here is the difference. When they ask you a question, you got to show depth. Now, Cloud EPMS, I was interviewed for a network architect position. I'll just use this as an example. And they said, Mike, we're working with a global bank. I know you understand MPLS systems, or you understand multicast. The bank, every time they have a network outage, it takes 13 seconds to reroute. Can we do it? Can we play with PIM timers? How do we do it? And I took a deep breath, Cloud EPMS, and I said, here's what we could do. What we could do is we can convert it to a single area OSPF, or intermediate systems to intermediate systems backbone. What we can then do is turn on some RSVP signaling. We can turn on the label distribution protocol, and we can signal a primary path, pseudo wire, and a secondary explicit path pseudo wire, and we get the thing to 40 milliseconds. The interview stopped right then and there because I showed that I was competent. I don't get tech. Amazon doesn't have a coding test. They don't ask you to configure anything. What is a real architect interview? They make you present it and sell a solution to them. They give you a scenario, and you have to design it, present it, and sell it back to them. So you have to, they're going to ask you on a real job to design it, present it, and sell it. Now, how you ask me a question, like if you said to me, Mike, what is OSPF? And I'd say, OSPF is a link state routing protocol that routers use to determine the best path to the destination. The way it works is as follows. Routers advertise the state of their links. And by doing that, each router creates something called a link state database. Now, when we're dealing with link state databases, it's built based upon link state advertisements. Let's talk about what they are. The type 1 link state advertisement is released by the router to let you know the state of its links. A type 2 link state advertisement is related to the links produced by the designated routers and the backup designated routers. Now, the type 3 LSA, and this is all part of Cloud Architect knowledge too, is related to summary addresses across areas. Now, a type 4 LSA will show you your autonomous system board and router reachability, which is the router closest to egress to the system, and a type 5 LSA are routes that are learned from external systems. Now, the type 7 LSA is a type 5 LSA in a stub area, or a not so stubby area. So, Cloud EMPMS, that's how you demonstrate knowledge. You're going to have to answer with a deep technical answer, but the answer is how it works, not how to configure it. Now, if you configured OSPF all day long on Cisco routers, guess what? You still not know how to answer that, because that would be admin stuff. I don't care if you can do router OSPF 1, network 192.168.1.0, 0.0.0255, area 0. That's a configuration command. That does not teach you how to design OSPF. So we must be fair and understand this. Knowing how to use a hammer does not create a building architect. Knowing how to configure does not create a cloud architect. And you must give them deep technical answers that show that you understand how it works, how to design it. And that's how you do your design, present, and sell. In Cloud EPMS, I just did, between 50 and 100 recent, recommendations for students over the years when they get hired. And what do they ask on the form? What do they do? And I say, design, present, and sell. And every customer's been very happy with it, because that's what we do, design, present, and sell. But you got to show and demonstrate that you can design, present, and sell. That's it. That's the job. And if you show me you're good at somebody else's job, I'll say, guess what, Cloud APMS? I've got the sysadmin job for you. Are you interested? And if you show me that you're good, I'll be interested in that. But that's really what it's about. Chris, let's go to the next one. The next one's probably the last one I can do for today, so we'll get to one more. Emmanuel, currently work in Nigeria as a building service engineer. Prior to that, you've been a systems integration engineer involved in the design and build of data centers and IT infrastructure. Excellent. From designing the electronic and security systems to structured cabling to power distribution. I am pivoting to the automation space, looking at how to integrate cloud engineering skills into this space. Okay, Emmanuel, good point here. So you are actually in an enormously good position. Now, Emmanuel, you're probably better suited to architecture based upon what that job than engineering. But here's the thing. We have to do what we love. So if you enjoy engineering, go do engineering. But realize you're currently already doing architecture. So if you do the engineering, you can do that. Now, to move in this direction, you're going to have to get more hands-on skills. Now, I told you architects design, present, and sell. And we need to know how the systems work to design them. And we move into the cloud engineering world, we go from the designer to the builder, which means you've got to have good cloud administration skills, setting up systems, command line management console, APIs, those kind of things. Now, in cloud engineering, this is very hands-on technical. And, there's going to be times where you need to automate And a lot of automation is going to be done via Python scripting or Bash shell scripting. So you're going to have to be very good as a cloud engineer in these two things. Now, we have to realize, Emmanuel, that most systems on the internet are now Linux. On the cloud, the most common Linux is actually Ubuntu. I love Red Hat, but it's most commonly Ubuntu because it's free. So as a cloud engineer, you need to have really good Linux engineering skills. Note I didn't say admin, I said engineering. What's the difference between admin and engineering? An admin is somebody that just touches a bunch of buttons and doesn't know what they mean. You give them a plan. An engineer knows what they're doing, how it works, and why to do it. So very strong technical skills here. Now, an engineer is going to have to administer Linux and administer Windows like an engineer, installing packages, optimizing the systems, locking them down. Heavy-duty tech stuff. Now, next, cloud engineers will need to have some strong Terraform knowledge, because the reality is in today's world, we're going to be setting up 1,000 VPCs, tearing down 1,000 VPCs, going from one cloud to another. We go to one cloud, realize it doesn't make sense financially, move to another cloud. Some customers are saying, oh my God, the cloud's not cheaper. Of course it's not, but it's more agile, which we love. So they go from the cloud back to their data centers, and then they build their own private clouds, and then they have the hybrid clouds, which are all good. So cloud engineering, deep skills. Terraform, Python, Linux, Windows, and cloud stuff. And you still need to have the knowledge of the network and the data center. It is a great career manual. And realize you're doing architecture right now. So the cloud architect role will be simpler for you to get. But if you love engineering, wonderful. And those are what you need to do. And I welcome you to the space. It's the best space in the world, Emmanuel. And congratulations. I see a lot of people in Nigeria that are going to be getting some incredible cloud computing roles. I work with people in Nigeria, Cameroon, Cape Town, a lot of people in South Africa, Ethiopia, Eritrea, Gabon, Benin, Uganda, Morocco. You know what I think? I think Africa is going to be one of the new generations and places for cloud computing, and here's the reason why. Educated workforce. Many people speak perfect English or French or Arabic. So you got your three biggest languages represented. You got a very hardworking population and lots of education and training. So I think we're going to see a lot more there. So I think you probably got an incredibly bright future. So let me end on the following. If you've not hit the like button, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell. I want to remind you that our team is releasing a free Google Professional Cloud Architect book. Please download it. Well, it'll be released in about a month or so, but it's pre-release. Sign up for the form, and you'll get it in the first day that it's available. On the 7th, we are going to do a completely free practice interview session. And on the 9th, we're going to do a completely free resume session to help you get to your goals. So sign up. The link is in the chat box as well as the description below. Take advantage of my 30% off birthday discount. And on Thursday at 1 p.m., make sure you join us for the How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar. I'll tell you everything you need to get that first cloud architect job. So give me a cloud architect, cloud engineer in the chat box, and you can give me a cloud hired in the chat box, and have a wonderful day. I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow on the webinar. Take care, everyone.